A common question we get is, how long should I study for each part of the CMA exam? Well, unfortunately, there is no one answer that's the same for everyone. Everyone comes with a little different background, a different education, different work experience, and that's going to influence how much time each person needs to study to be ready to pass their CMA exams. But having said that, there are still some minimums that we can use to determine kind of what that target number should be based on the reality of the study process. Not just some number that sounds good or some number that we think students want to hear, but an actual number based on what it is that you actually need to study to be ready for the exam. And this is what we've done when we've created our time estimates for studying for the exam. For example, every MCQ you do requires time. Let's say 3 minutes to read the question, to answer the question, to look at your answer, to understand why you got it incorrect. Just 3 minutes per MCQ. Every video you watch requires time. And we'll be optimistic and say that it takes 1 minute to watch 1 minute of video. It may actually be a little more than that. You rewind something, you listen to something again, but we'll just say 1 minute to watch 1 minute of video. Every page of a textbook that you read requires time. And let's just say 4 minutes per page. Okay, you read it, you think about it, you might reference something else, but just for our math purposes, we'll say 4 minutes per page. Every essay you do takes time. So let's say 30 minutes. 30 minutes for each essay that you practice with. So using those as our kind of time per thing that we're going to study, let's assume that we have the following materials for one part of the exam. You want to study 2,000 MCQs. You want to watch 30 hours of videos. There's 40 essays to do. And you've decided there's 300 pages of textbook that you're going to need to read through. So let's calculate our time. 2,000 MCQs, 3 minutes each, 6,000 minutes or 100 hours. If you're going to watch 30 hours of videos, well, that's going to take you 30 hours to do that. 300 pages of a textbook, 4 minutes per page, that's 1,200 minutes or 20 hours to read the textbook. If you have 40 essays and each essay takes 30 minutes, that's another 1,200 minutes, another 20 hours in total. So this brings us to 170 hours to do those MCQs, to read the textbook, to watch the videos, to do those essays. And at this 170 hours, you haven't done a mock exam, you haven't reviewed anything, you haven't done any of the MCQs a second time. So if we add in 2 mock exams, we add in a final review, or some final review, we do some of those MCQs a second time, we're getting to 200 hours per part. And this is if our assumptions about what we're going to study were accurate. If you decide to add a second test bank, that's going to add a lot more time. If you watch additional videos, that's going to add time. Everything you add to what you study is going to add time to that amount of time it takes you to prepare. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't add additional items. You should if you need them. But as you add additional questions and additional videos and you go read additional textbooks, you need to make certain that what it is you're adding is adding value to you. It's going to increase your chances of passing your exam. Doing more questions just to say that you did more questions isn't going to help you pass your exam. And this is why we rarely recommend that a candidate needs a second test bank. It adds a lot of time, but it doesn't really add very much value at all. So, having gone through all of this, we can come back to the question we started with. How long do you need to prepare for your CMA exam? We've seen the numbers, we've done the math, so being realistic, you should start with about 180 hours at a minimum in your mind as your goal. Might be a little bit more, might be a little bit less, based on your background and your education and the experience you have. But 180 hours is a very good starting point based on the reality of how long it takes you to do the things that you want to do in your studies. So if someone tells you or tries to tell you that you only need 100 hours, or some even say less than 100 hours, you need to ask yourself, what is it that they're expecting me to do? And is that going to be enough to prepare me for the exam? 100 hours is just enough time to do the 2,000 MCQs and nothing else. So if somebody's saying you need less than 100 hours to study, then you should be doing fewer than 2,000 MCQs and nothing else as part of your study. The key is that you prepare as many hours as you need to pass your exam. What works for your friend or colleague may not be what works for you. 180 hours is a good, realistic starting point for your planning. But as you study, you need to be ready to adjust this, more or less, so that you study the number of hours that you need to pass your exam.